On the eve of Super Bowl 59, I come to you guys with my official pick on the big game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Gonna break down this matchup a little bit, try to keep this video short and succinct, but hopefully pack it with enough information for you guys as to why I like a certain side. Now, before I get to the pick, guys, I've released 3 free props that are posted on the Action Network app, which is linked down in the description. It's completely free. You guys can follow me on the app with that link and tail my free props. I have 8 total props. I'm probably going to add 1 more tomorrow, so there'll be 4 props in total listed on the app. So make sure you tail us with those. Now, onto the game. I'm going to go through a list of basically reasons why I like Kansas City in this game. All right, Kansas City -1 is my official bet. I waited with the 1.5 at the open. I waited all for a long time, almost 2 weeks, until we got a move on Philly, and I was able to grab that -1. And that is the side that I'm on in this game. I think there are several reasons as to why once I dug in, once I got past the first layer of the onion, it became clear to me that there were more advantages than I expected for the Chiefs in this game, because on the surface, it kind of looks like Philly's the better team, better rushing offense, better defense, a lot of advantages in the trenches. But once I started to really, really dig in, it's kind of like it's not really what meets the eye. The first thing I want to talk about is there is some ambiguity or mystery surrounding the Chiefs' offense, and I'll explain what I mean by that. They've got now this core. Obviously Rashee Rice was the wide receiver 1, lost, obviously lost for the season with the season-ending injury. You now have this core of basically Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. Now, Hopkins is really not too involved, but you've got these 5 guys that are mostly on the field. These 5 guys have only played 4 games together for the entire season. 2 regular season games and 2 playoff games. And I actually think that lack of film, that lack of data available to Vic Fangio and the Philadelphia Eagles as to what this offense really looks like when all of these guys are on the field, I think that mystery, that cloudiness really, really gives it an advantage to Andy Reid, who is a master of coming up with these schemes, this trickery, these elaborate offensive concepts that throw you off of your game on defense. It's one thing to just prepare for that on its own, but to prepare for that now with personnel that you don't have a lot of history as to how he's going to use them, I just think makes it, just exacerbates the issue for the Eagles. So I think number 1, my first biggest point is the lack of data points, the lack of reference points for Philly as to how this offense, as it's currently constructed, meshes together is going to be an issue in this game. And I think it heavily favors the Kansas City offense way more than people think against this elite Eagles defense. I think the second thing I want to talk about is special teams. And this one's kind of obvious, but I don't just mean overall special teams. I'm talking about the kickers. You guys know what I'm talking about, the kickers. Jake Elliott this season is 1 of 8 on field goals of 50-plus yards. There's only one guy in this game who's made a field goal to win a Super Bowl before. All right, the biggest moment you could possibly have, and that's Harrison Butker. Combining this with the return game that we've seen from the Chiefs, with their punt and kick returner that's been rattling off some explosive returns, I think there's a sizable advantage for Kansas City on special teams, especially the kicker. Though how many of these games have we seen come down to a field goal? This is going to be huge. I also think the Philadelphia offense, once you really dig into it, even though they added Saquon, they're not the offense that we saw 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. That offense was a lot more explosive through the air. Jalen Hurts, I went back and rewatched the Super Bowl, as I'm sure a lot of you did, Super Bowl 57. Jalen Hurts looked a lot more spry. He had more explosiveness with his feet. His passes had a bit more zip to them. He was just overall sharper. And now you have this offense that relies so heavily on Saquon Barkley. What happens if the Kansas City Chiefs are able to stifle him? And by stifle, I'd not literally shut him down, but just contain him. Consider this. Last year, Kansas City played the San Francisco 49ers. What did they have in common with their opponent this year? Well, San Francisco was the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. 2 years ago, they played the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, at that time, Philadelphia in 2022 was the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. And in those previous 2 Super Bowls, Kansas City essentially forced both teams to abandon the run. I think in 2022 they allowed 2.6 yards per carry. Last year was 3.5 yards per carry against the Niners and McCaffrey. You're talking about a team that even when not truly elite up front, Spags is just a master of stopping what you do best. And this is a team that has, on the biggest stage, under the brightest lights, been able to shut down the best rushing offenses each year in the last 2 Super Bowls. And going back to what I said about Philadelphia's offense not being what it was, this is on top of the fact that Philly played the easiest schedule this season of opposing passing defenses. Now, to be fair, they played from ahead a lot and didn't necessarily have to air the ball out, but there's still something to be said about that, in my opinion. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, KC's defense, who a lot of the narratives that you've heard is they're not as good as they were the last 2 years when they won the Super Bowls. Okay, fair enough. They're probably not as good as they were. But Kansas City is on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to this. Their defense, their passing defense, played 248 dropbacks this season against top 10 passing offenses. That's 4th highest in the NFL. And on those dropbacks against top 10 passing offenses, their passing defense finished top 3 in EPA per attempt, and they weren't 3 and they weren't 2. They were number 1 in the NFL in EPA per attempt against teams that are top 10 passing offenses. So they were tested. They were tested by some of the best passing offenses in the NFL, and they finished better than anybody at defending it. So, in my opinion, once you start to dig into some of this stuff, it becomes pretty clear to me that just beyond the basics of like what we look for in a Super Bowl, Kansas City has a lot more edges than I thought they were going to have. Now, I'll wrap it up with this. To me, at the end of the day, I kind of already hinted at this already, but at the end of the day, there's really 3 things I look at every time I make a Super Bowl pick. And we've had this service for 5 years. We're 4-1 in Super Bowls. The one that I got wrong was the Tampa Bay Super Bowl where they beat Kansas City. My thing is always quarterback, head coach, kicker, right? Some people say defense, quarterback, defense, special teams, or head coach, quarterback, defense. To me, it's quarterback, head coach, kicker. And Kansas City has not just an edge, but such a clear, large edge in all 3 of those categories. So yeah, the Eagles can run the ball more, but what happens if Saquon gets stuffed a couple of times? Do they panic and go away from it? Yeah, the Eagles can win in the trenches, but what happens if the Chiefs, like they always do, put together a good enough of an offensive line, and Mahomes, with his elusiveness and his ability to get out of the pocket and get rid of the ball super fast, what if that offsets the pressure that they can get up front? What happens then? Kansas City is so good. I think an underrated part of their success is that they're so good at just forcing you out of your game script. Not necessarily beating you at what you do best. Not that their strengths are your weaknesses or vice versa. It's just that they somehow put together these game plans where they force you to go off script. And the retort to that would typically be, well, you can do that to them if you're good enough, or if you go off script, maybe they have to go off script. The problem is Kansas City has no script. And I think that this is really a huge part of their success, is that they can force you to deviate from your game plan, and they can beat you with any game plan that comes out of that as a result. It's kind of like one of those flow charts, right? Or decision trees. And if you have to go one way, whatever it branches out to, they can beat you in any way. It doesn't matter. So if you want to go blow for blow in a shootout, Mahomes can do that. If you want to make it a defensive grind, Chris Jones and company and Trent McDuffie, they can do that. If you want to, whatever it is, go back and forth, they can do that. If you want to go kicker for kicker, they can beat you. They just can simply beat you via any game script while forcing you to deviate from your game script. And most teams would prefer a game. The Philadelphia Eagles' preferred game script is very obvious. They want to run the ball with Saquon and they want to play from ahead. Forcing them to do anything but that favors the Chiefs. And I just think there's too high of a percentage chance that actually happens, that they are forced out of their game script and the Chiefs take control of the game. I think this is probably one of those similar games that we've seen all year long where Philly leads early, maybe has a 3-7 point lead at the half. Kansas City comes down second half, takes the lead. But I don't think this game is going to come down to a field goal. I don't think that, like a lot of people have been saying. I think Kansas City is going to make a statement. I think this is a big game for their legacy. Getting the three-peat I don't think they're going to win by 3. I think they're going to win by more than a touchdown in this game. That's my prediction. I think they'll have the ball in hand, up 7 or up 10, with a chance to ice the game, and they will ice it, and Philly won't be able to stop them. So my final prediction for this game, 31-23, Kansas City Chiefs complete the three-peat. So the pick is Kansas City -1, guys. And like I said, down in the description, the Action Network app has several other props that I like posted for free if you guys want to tail me on those. Thank you all for watching all season long, and I'll be back soon. I'll catch you on the next one. Good luck this weekend. Let's get it.